Support for the Forward's Bintel Brief podcast comes from listeners like you and from Edward Blank, whose generosity makes this program possible.
I'm Lynn Harris. I love hot sauce, snow, and attempting to live up to my mother's incredibly high standard of superb advice.
And I'm Gina, and when I'm not getting into good trouble or chasing after my 4 kids, I like to cook, write, and obliterate my opponents at Scrabble and Bananagrams.
Here's the deal. We are going to be answering questions every week, and we want to answer your burning question.
Everyone listening has probably disagreed with another member of their family across the dinner table about one thing or another. But what do you do when that opinion crosses the line from opinion to action? Today, we're talking about 2 brothers, a few opinions, and a world of possible outcomes. Let's get into it. Dear Bintel, my brother is an elected official in a small town in an ex-urban part of the state. He's a Democrat and a union man. But at his grassroots level of politics, political philosophy doesn't really matter. Can you get the roads paved? Is what counts. My brother has recently discovered YouTube, which means that now he is refusing to get vaccinated, which also means that now he is worried about the influx of immigrants into his village of 4,000 people. How many immigrants can you have? I asked. 2? 3? He got very serious and said, 12. It's hard to see my brother change like this, and I'm sure it's unfair to his constituents, who elected a very different man than the one he is becoming. Not to mention, my wife is immunocompromised, so the fact that my brother is buying into these conspiracy theories means we can't even see him safely. What can I do? Sincerely, oh brother, where art thou?
Oh, brother. Can I just say I love my brother has recently discovered YouTube, which means that now he is refusing to get vaccinated. Like that sentence could have gone in like a billion other. My brother has recently discovered YouTube, which means he now loves cats playing the piano, or like whatever.
It's true, right? We've all disagreed with friends, relatives, coworkers on a number of issues and topics, and most of the time it just sits in the land of disagreement. And we either, agree to disagree and keep it pushing, or we fight and argue and are no longer friends. It sounds like he still likes his brother and wants to see him because part of this issue is he won't get vaccinated, so they can't go see him.
Well, it reminds me, first of all, of our letter from Aunt Enemy, who had where it was a slightly different triangle. That triangle was our letter writer and her sibling and the adult children of the sibling. And here we have 2 siblings, these 2 brothers. And then the third point in the triangle is the constituents.
The village people.
Yeah, the village. Yes, the townsfolk. The townsfolk. And, of course, now that we're talking specifically about brothers, the Hebrew Bible talks about brothers pretty early on. The children of the first humans were brothers who also had issues.
Indeed.
That resulted, as you know, in murder. I think that the key question of this letter and of, Genesis chapter 4 and thenceforth is, am I my brother's keeper? And to what degree, and it can be asked by both brothers here, for each of them, where do their responsibilities begin and end with regard to each other?
Right. I think it is so Jewish also for this brother to be concerned about the townsfolk in the village of people and constituents that he is hundreds of miles away from, presumably at a minimum. He's like, whoa, these folks elected someone to represent them, their interests, and they're getting someone different.
Yeah.
Does this brother owe the townspeople?
I don't know. In a way, to me, that one's a little easier in the sense that, well, let's play that out. Let's say he does. Then what would he do? Publish an anonymous op-ed, leak it to the local Post and Courier. I don't know how he would show up at a town meeting, like on Parks and Rec, and raise some hell. I don't know. My gut on that one is that if it's a small town, either it will not come up because we're focused on keeping the fire department open and fixing the bridge.
Right.
or it's gonna come out because it's a small town, and I don't know how long, a town council anti-vaxxer could hide those opinions, or how much he would want to. If he really believes this stuff, why would he want to hide it?
I'm thinking about it. I feel like the letter writer is correct, right? That at that local level, a lot of times these elections are nonpartisan. So you might not even know someone's political persuasion. So the letter writer says that the constituents elected someone who didn't share these views and values, but they actually may not always know what someone's values are before or after they've gone into the voting booth. So, there's that is the letter writer still taking care of his constituents in a way that they can see and feel? Are the roads being paved? Is the town being responsive? I feel like if those are still being met, then let's let him keep his role. We don't know if this position is the dog catcher or the mayor.
Right.
I think we're making an assumption that he's a member of the town council. But, if he's the mayor, then presumably this is a paid position, and it would be a whole thing if he weren't in it anymore, and he would, lose his job and perhaps lose income if he's the dog catcher or the mayor or even the city council. There may be a stipend. So I think there's also like a Jewish imperative around not disrupting someone's parnassah, right? Not disrupting someone's ability to make an income. So I'm thinking about that in the back of my head too. And if he's still doing the job of serving his constituents, then he should be able to keep it. But I do think it's interesting that Oh Brother, Where Art Thou leads with the political philosophy, the immigration, the constituents. And then at the end, not to mention, he says,
right,
his wife is immunocompromised. So, that's sort of buries that element of it.
Yeah.
And it still feels to me like at the core, he's feeling similarly to Enemy Ant that he might lose his brother. And because we know that these conversations are really difficult to have, we have brought on some experts to help y'all navigate this challenging terrain. We are beyond excited to have on today's podcasts the illustrious hosts of Majority 54, Jason Kander and Ravi Gupta. They spend their time in Majority 54 drawing on their experience winning progressive political campaigns in red states to give folks the tools necessary to combat the latest misinformation and disinformation that we've been seeing all over the internet and at our kitchen tables too. So Ravi, Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And Ravi was just like, hey, yeah, we've won and lost campaigns in red states. He corrected me. So yes, we're not winning them all. Thanks for that correction. Can you guys give us your own quick 2-sentence bio? Because we got your treatises.
Sure, I'll go. Afghanistan veteran, former Secretary of State of Missouri. Now I do work with veterans.
Former Obama campaign and administration staffer, turned school principal, turned candidate strategist.
And fitness influencer. Yeah, I would throw fitness influencer in for Robbie.
And hat influencer.
Fitness and agricultural influencer. Yeah.
Well, let me just start by saying that questions like this one are the number one reason why I started Majority 54 in the first place back in 2017. At the time I was thinking I was going to run for president, so I was like all over the country, but I was hearing the same question over and over, which was some version of, how do I maintain a relationship with my, blank, my aunt, my brother, my brother-in-law, my best friend from high school, whatever, who I love and who is saying all these crazy things. And then sometimes the follow-on question was, how do I convince them of my point of view without losing that relationship? And so that's why we started a podcast that was for people to, persuade others one-on-one without losing relationships. So this is a really common problem. And I'll start with what I have learned as probably the chief lesson in this area, which is the importance of personalizing the conversation. The instinct for a lot of people in this situation is to just sort of parrot the best arguments that they've heard on cable news or that they've read, in the newspaper. And that doesn't work. If you are saying the same thing that people in a square box on on a talk show are saying, then you're just as effective as those people who are clearly ineffective with someone who you want to approach this way. And so what you have to do is you have to leverage the credibility you have from your personal relationship.
Longtime listeners of Majority 54 know this because I go through this myself. Both my brother and father are somebody who, no matter what Trump says or does, he's going to be with him. And I have watched my father evolve over the years from, an Indian immigrant who kind of fell in love with Reagan to somebody who started listening to talk radio in the early 90s and then became radicalized. I myself, even as the host of Majority 54, struggled to figure out what to do next. But, we've learned from the spectrum of listeners that we have that there is hope. And I think, in addition to what Jason said, which I 100% agree with, the second piece is really digging in and understanding where they get their information and how they're changing their views. Like in my example, if I know I'm going to see my dad, right, I will try to read up on that to just try to get a sense of what's coming for me. So I'll be prepared to counter it.
Yeah, to not be shocked by it and react in a way that entrenches him further.
Yeah, and it helps to say you did it. Like my dad, it's almost insane how often he asks me whether I've listened to Scott Adams. And so it's actually frustrating because he never asks me what I am listening to, but that's fine. I just let him know, yeah, I listened to that episode last week, whatever. As painful and insane as some of this stuff is, it actually helps because then they're like, oh, he's not like some ignorant person who looks down upon our views. Mm-hmm. I'm also a little weird like that because I do this anyway for the podcast and it puts me in a bad mood every week. So I kind of group it together. Usually group it next to something that brings me joy because listening to Ben Shapiro every week is an occupational hazard.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question because this is a Jewish podcast. And I mean, let's just be straight that in the Jewish community, by and large, I think everyone here knows that we are very predictably Democrats. We have been very predictably Democrats for a long time. However, we have seen in recent years a rightward shift in segments of the Jewish community, and there are plenty of Jewish Trump supporters. And I just want to talk a little bit about the equating of Trump supporters with dangerous ideology. So there's a two-part question. Trump supporters with dangerous ideology, and then where is the tension, the rub, the space between that dangerous ideology versus political differences? When does just we have a difference of opinion versus I believe a thing that could harm people?
To pick up where Ravi left off a moment ago, that's what is so dangerous about political identity taking such a forefront in our culture, right? That's where you can slide into these dangerous ideologies and these extreme views and even extreme actions because it's all part of an identity. And the further you go into the identity, the further you get into that. I mean, I am certain that there are people who have been arrested in connection with the January 6th insurrection who, now looking back are like, how did I actually get to this point? And, some of them are probably just saying it to get out of trouble, but some of them probably have had that wake up call.
Yeah. That middle ground, that persuadable question is really huge, right? Because as a communications strategist, I think of people as the people I can talk to, the people I can't talk to, and the people I will never, ever convince. So there's a question around this segment of the population who's on this track. How many of them are persuadable? Do we even know?
Yeah, this is going to sound a weird topic for two dudes to be talking about, but Jason and I had a good conversation in Kansas City the other day about unconditional love. Because this gets the heart of the listener question, right? This is somebody who you have a different kind of obligation to. This isn't your workout partner. This is a family member. And I think there's this tension between the desire to write somebody off and walk away versus this belief in somebody where you just say, look, no matter how far out you get, I'm still here with you.
Let me just say for the record that I can't think of anything better for two dudes to be talking about than unconditional love.
I actually was going to say the same thing. I was like, that sounds perfect to me.
Yeah.
We need more dudes talking about that.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. One other piece of this letter that we wanted to address. We know that this guy's not just, the guy at the end of the bar. This guy is a political leader. In a small context, but still. And he was elected for a platform that his constituents supported. What is his responsibility now? Does the brother have an obligation to, I don't know. What's his obligation here?
I don't think that he de facto, the brother, had an obligation to do anything in public life about his brother. It certainly could help sometimes, but I I don't think everybody is required to get into the public square, because it is a nasty place to be.
So, Ravi, you just said, the public square is a nasty place to be, and it's nasty because we make it that way. I don't think it has to be nasty, and I think that the more of us, if we can get more women, more trans folks, more non-binary folks, I think that if we change who runs and who wins, we actually change the nature of the public square, and we change the outcome. We actually change the minds of the 40% of the country when we can see people who have values like you and like Jason who are running for office. So I think, to me, that is the big thing here, is that, oh, brother, where art thou's brother doesn't have to be the person on the town council. There are so many people with talent, with skill, with energy who could also be on town council. And I think about that a lot when we're answering this question, like who's there, who's in the public square already, and who can help change it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks for having us.
I'm Rachel Fishman-Feddersen, publisher and CEO of The Forward. If you like this podcast, the best way to support it is to donate to The Forward. We're a reader-supported nonprofit, and we can't survive without you. Please go to forward.com/donate today.
And even though this question that we received from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is about his brother the public servant, in a small town, that small town is part of the place we all live in called the public square. And the public square means not everyone gets to have their pedestal in that place, but who we put on pedestals in those places, who we put in the middle of the public square, our public officials, our public servants, our electeds, it is important who's there. And it is important that we think about all levels of government in the public square, all ways that we can be served by our elected officials, and all ways that they serve us. And I think there's a lot to extrapolate from this letter that was about brother to brother, but really indicative of what we as a society need to be able to do: communicate with each other, hear voices, amplify voices that we haven't heard, and recognize the spectrum of who's in the public square and our role in populating it.
I think there's no one right path. I think, so obviously we're saying, dude, you got to talk to your brother, whether you have already or not. Talk again. Now, what are your tactics? What's your frame? So Gina is saying one possible frame is that maybe this guy hasn't changed as much as we think. Maybe there are still core values. He's still an elected official. He cares about unions. And as you said, that doesn't mean everything, but it means that someone here inside him somewhere cares about community, cares about service, cares about the power of the collective, somewhere in there, right? Maybe there's a tactic where you're like, I would like to hang out with you. You are my brother. I love my wife. My wife loves you. We both want to see you. To me, that's the molten emotional core here. The hurt feelings, like you have a chance to not immunocompromise my wife. You have a chance to be able to see me safely, and you are actively not choosing that thing.
And the answer to that conversation might really suck, right? Making that offer of, if you do a thing, then it permits other things. If you get vaccinated, then we can be together as a family. And finding out that that offer is rejected is huge. And I wonder if that is sort of why that piece gets buried in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou's letter, right? The reality.
Right, like enemy aunt, like what if I'm afraid of the answer. If I talk to my siblings about how much they know or care about what their adult kids are into, what'll I find out that I don't want to know? Exactly. What'll I find out that I don't want to have to process?
And that's a stake in the ground, right? If Dog Catcher Council Mayor person is like, yeah, I don't think that y'all are important enough to me to vaccinate. And for sure, that's happened many, many times across this country.
Yeah, but it's a harsh toke.
We're making one clear recommendation. It's got a couple of components to it for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which include you got to go back to your brother and talk to him. Like, number one, have another conversation. We know, like you said, they've done the immigration math. but have they done the family math? So I think that there does need to be, like you said, a family math conversation about what it means for them to be together, how they can be together, what we need for his wife to be able to participate and be a part of the family. And then I think there is a conversation to be had that's bigger picture than that, which is about the values, which might be, and related to what you were saying, is going to be up to, oh, brother, where art thou? Right? Like, how much does he feel like he can take on in terms of bringing his brother back or not?
It all goes back to the original question. And by original, I mean in Genesis, of am I my brother's keeper, which was said with some sarcasm or rhetorically by Cain, but really, take it into the larger context. Yes, we are all our brothers and sisters and siblings keepers. We are. But that doesn't mean that there's only one course of action that will express our keeperhood, our keeperness. We still have to balance our responsibility to our community, to our family, to our constituents with what makes sense for us.
Oh, brother, where art thou? You got to talk to your brother again, and you can let us know how it went, because we're going to be answering folks' questions and queries and requests for advice every week. So people can send us new questions, and folks who've sent us old questions can give us updates if you've got some report back of using our advice. Send us your questions and the details, every bit of information you feel comfortable sharing to bintel@forward.com. Or even better, call us. Your voicemail could end up on the podcast. Here's the number, 201-540-9728. And that email is bintel@forward.com. Thanks to Edward Blank for making this podcast possible.
I'm Jody Rudoran, editor-in-chief of The Forward. Every day, my team of creative, passionate journalists works to understand and explain our complex and diverse Jewish world, to cover the rise in anti-Semitism, the changing discourse around Israel, the new trends in Jewish books, film, and food. We're carrying on a 124-year tradition of holding power to account and helping American Jews explore our identities, but we're doing it in new ways that work across generations. If you want to keep up with what American Jews are talking about, sign up for our free email newsletters. Just go to forward.com/newsletters.